right, this week we're going to dive into the cultural sound of worship. Earlier I mentioned how God values the diversity of language in the world, and each language carries unique treasures of God's kingdom. We discussed how worshiping in the mother tongue is a big part of worshiping in truth, because it's usually the heart language where people can communicate the most genuinely to God. The diversity of each cultural sound is also so valuable to God, as it reflects the different aspects and facets of God's glory. And I don't believe there should be a category or a genre of worship music with all the worship sounding the same. Worship music should be full of variety and found in every genre, with different sounds relating to all different types of culture and people groups. I believe each city, region, nation, and people group carry a sound that reflects their culture. People connect with the types of music that reflect their values, beliefs, and customs of their culture. Look at the African drum, for example. It is the primary instrument that you think of when you think of Africa. It leads the culture into moving their bodies to express and communicate their hearts. This is a significant piece to African worship because it reflects their customs and values for dance and expression of the body. Different instruments and styles of music play a powerful role in our cultural worship expression. There is a study called Ethnomusicology, which is defined as a study of social and cultural aspects of music and dance in local and global contexts. Okay, so one facet of ethnomusicology suggests that the melodies of certain people groups are somehow affected by the terrain of their landscape. For example, regions of a flat terrain have less melodies with movement in their intervals, while hilly terrains have more leaps and jumps in their melodic intervals. So basically this theory suggests that the music of a region sounds like what the land looks like. I find this study interesting. So think about how different ethnic instruments also reflect the sound of the land. For example, the didgeridoo of Australia carries this low tone with little movement, reflecting that flat terrain of the land. While the Irish flute releases this very melodic sound, leaping like we see in the hills and the mountains of Ireland. Then the ukulele has this light-hearted sound of the islands, as you could almost see the water rushing over the sand on a beach while you hear it being played. So different instruments of the world evoke different emotions of the soul, and different cultures may experience instruments differently. For me, when I hear and think of the ukulele, it evokes this playful joy and this peaceful relaxation. While when I hear a stringed instrument, it evokes something really deep within me, like calling forth the deep parts of me to worship God. Have you ever thought of how ethnic instruments or certain music styles from where we come from, the land of our ancestral roots, could influence our worship? In Norway, we know the hardange fiddle is an ethnic instrument, and folk music is the primarily known, traditional music here. Norway has been influenced by many other instruments as well throughout history from different parts of Europe. But if we think about the theory of ethnomusicology, and the sound of the Norwegian language, it is a very melodic language with fluctuating tones within sentences. I remember being in the beginning when I was traveling a lot to Norway. I would come back and I would still have a little bit of an accent from being in Norway, and my coworkers would tease me a bit. They'd say, "Yeah, Mary, how is Norway?" Could this fluctuation and tone of the Norwegian language be influenced by the hilly and mountainous terrain? We know for sure that the terrain has kept the country from sounding the same, as different dialects and expressions have formed in different regions with, the mountains separating them. In old folk songs and wedding marches, we have different beautiful melodies with sounds of, dum dee dum da dee dum da dee dum dum, representing different areas of the country. A very important piece to Norway's sound from the culture is also from the indigenous of the land, the Sami people in the Arctic North. It is where we find most of the Sami, even though they are spread throughout, all parts of Scandinavia. But their culture also has a sound with important values and customs that reflect God's kingdom. Their drum and the yoik expresses a part of their cultural identity that should be heard in their worship to God.